Chloe deserves everything. You're just background noise, my mother, Diane, spat from across the law office. Her words sliced through the silence like a serrated blade. I sat perfectly still in the plush leather chair, back straight, palms folded tightly in my lap. Diane's sharp heels clicked against the tile as she paced behind my sister, radiating triumph. She looked like a queen who had just conquered a small kingdom and was preparing to redecorate it with her golden child by her side. My name is Melissa, and I'm 31. For most of my life, I was the daughter that didn't quite stick. Chloe, my younger sister by 4 years, had always been the favored one. She was charming, magnetic, and knew how to command attention without saying a word. I, on the other hand, was the one who remembered birthdays, filled prescriptions, and sat through hospital visits. We were in the downtown Austin offices of Warren & Grant, a high-end estate law firm whose mahogany-paneled conference room felt like a library with a judgmental gaze. The air was thick with old money and newer betrayals. Diane couldn't hide her excitement. The lawyers were late, but she was already gloating. "Your grandma knew what mattered," she said to Chloe with a gleam in her eye. "She always said you had style, ambition, sparkle." Melissa, well, she had good attendance. I barely flinched. It had taken years of being subtly erased, undermined, or ignored to learn how to sit silently and let the jabs pass through me like wind. I kept my gaze steady, my breath calm, and my focus on the thick envelope in my tote bag. Inside was the one document that would set this room on fire. "I can't wait to redo Grandma's place," Chloe gushed, her peach-manicured nails drumming impatiently on the glossy table. "That tacky antique wallpaper? Gone. I'm thinking California chic, maybe something coastal with sage green and gold tones. It'll be gorgeous." Diane beamed. "Rose left just enough for that. The house and her savings. That's about $30,000 in the bank, maybe a little more. Should get you started." They'd already mentally gutted the house, stripped the furniture, and cashed the checks. I listened like a ghost in my own family's story. Neither of them mentioned the Tuesdays and Thursdays I spent with Grandma Rose helping her sort tax forms, install antivirus software, and yes, listen to the same stories for the 15th time without looking at my phone. Nor did they know what Rose had really been doing during those visits. The doorknob rattled. The attorneys had arrived. Diane straightened her blazer, pulled back her hair. Chloe fluffed her waves and tilted her chin. They were ready to collect what they believed was rightfully theirs. What they didn't know was that Rose had spent the last 3 years creating an ironclad succession plan, one that bypassed my mother's gambling habit and my sister's sense of entitlement entirely. It all started with a cup of black tea on Rose's porch. She'd said, "Your mom's sunk 3 inheritances already, Mel. I gave her $10,000 for Chloe's college fund. She blew it on slot machines in Tulsa. I need someone I can trust. Someone who doesn't see dollar signs when I say the word trust fund." That day, she handed me a manila folder. Inside, legal documents, company shares, real estate titles, financial reports, over $12 million in assets that no one in my family even knew existed. Rose had built an empire behind a screen door and a rusty bic. A silent one. A smart one. She owned controlling interests in a gourmet meal prep company, a solar tech startup in Nevada, a regional craft brewery, 3 residential buildings in East Austin, and a high-end home staging firm with celebrity clientele. She disguised it all under shell corporations and silent partnerships. The others believed she was living off her late husband's union pension and a bit of Social Security. What they didn't realize was that she'd reinvested her life insurance payout in tech during the early 2000s and never looked back. The door opened. The attorneys entered. Mr. Langford, an older man with a voice like warm bourbon, led the reading. Diane squeezed Chloe's hand as the words "last will and testament" of Rose Margaret Delaney rang through the room. It went exactly as expected at first. "To my beloved granddaughter, Chloe Delaney, I leave my residence at 14, Timberleaf Drive, all its furnishings and fixtures, as well as my jewelry and savings account held at First Western Credit Union." Chloe let out a breathy laugh, like she'd just won Miss America. Diane wiped a dramatic tear. They thought that was it. And that's what Rose had wanted them to think. Then Langford's voice continued, casually. "To my granddaughter Melissa Delaney, I leave all documents contained within the locked filing cabinet in my home office." Diane actually laughed. What business documents? My mother barely knew how to reset her Wi-Fi password. Chloe leaned over to whisper, I guess you get to clean out her paperwork. How exciting. I stayed silent. My pulse didn't rise. I'd practiced this. Mr. Langford looked up, paused meaningfully, then gestured to the second attorney beside him. This is Ms. Dana Choi, he said. From Marigold Holdings, LLC. She has additional documents related to Ms. Delaney's estate. Dana placed a briefcase on the table, popped the locks, and began sliding out binders thick with stamped forms. What followed was the slow, exquisite undoing of their smug little daydreams. Dana said one line that stopped everything. The house and savings account represent less than 1% of the total estate. Ms. Delaney's assets are primarily held in corporate trusts, and those designations follow a separate legal structure. Chloe's smile vanished. Diane blinked. What are you saying? Diane snapped. She had $30,000 in a bank account and an old house. Dana replied calmly, Rose Delaney held controlling interest in 5 privately held companies with a combined estimated value of $12.7 million. They are not part of the probate estate. They were transferred into a trust with a named successor. Diane looked confused. What successor? Dana turned to me. Melissa Delaney is the named successor to the trust. She's been acting as silent co-manager for the past 2 years. I've worked directly with her during quarterly audits. Dead silence. Then Diane exploded. This is manipulation. My mother would never cut us out. But she had. And she'd done it with surgical precision. Diane looked like she'd been slapped. Her expression morphed from confusion to pure rage. You're lying. This is a mistake, she snapped at Dana, who didn't flinch. Rose didn't know anything about business. She was a lonely old woman who watched murder mysteries and forgot to feed her cat half the time. Dana remained professional. Ms. Delaney was extensively evaluated for cognitive capacity 14 months ago. She passed with results well above the national average for her age group. Those records are on file, notarized, and time-stamped. Chloe, now visibly pale, turned to me. So you knew? You were in on this? You let us believe she was broke. I didn't say anything. Not yet. Dana continued her clinical explanation like this was just another meeting. For her, it probably was. Rose Delaney began investing in 2001 using funds from her husband's life insurance policy. Over the past 2 decades, she gradually acquired controlling shares in various private companies. In 2017, she consolidated those under Marigold Holdings, an umbrella trust. 2 years later, she began succession planning, naming Melissa Delaney as her legal successor and asset steward. Diane's jaw dropped. Chloe opened her mouth and closed it again. I reached into my tote and placed the sealed folder Rose had given me on the table. I slid it toward Mr. Langford. Per my grandmother's instructions, I said quietly. Langford opened it. Inside were notarized letters, hand-signed directives, and a personal statement titled, Why I Chose Melissa. He read it aloud. To whom it may concern, I have watched my daughter Diane mismanage every financial windfall she's received in the last 25 years, from insurance payouts to her daughter Chloe's college fund. I have been forced to play the fool in this family for decades. But I am not a fool. Langford paused. Looked at Diane, then continued. I chose Melissa not out of favoritism, but out of necessity. She has spent the last 3 years learning the structure of these businesses. She never once asked me for money. She showed up every Tuesday and Thursday with a notebook, a thermos of tea, and more patience than I deserved. She will preserve what I built. No one else will. Chloe stood abruptly, knocking her chair into the glass wall behind her. This is insane. She's been conning Grandma, manipulating her. Langford spoke again, calm but firm. The records show no indication of manipulation. In fact, Ms. Delaney documented conversations, audio recordings, journals, and legal witness statements demonstrating her mental clarity and intent. Including, he added, pulling out a USB drive, a series of audio files your grandmother recorded over the last year of her life. Would you like me to play one? Diane's voice faltered. This is a setup. This is a setup. I almost pitied her. Almost. Because now came the final twist. Dana turned the page on her binder. As per Texas business law, The trusts and their contents cannot be contested without demonstrable evidence of fraud or coercion, neither of which is present. The ownership transition began 6 months prior to Ms. Delaney's passing, meaning all financial assets are protected from probate court. The home and jewelry, however, she turned to Chloe now, her expression neutral, are not protected. What does that mean? Chloe asked, her voice trembling. It means they are subject to lien collection. Diane blinked. Lien? What lien? Dana calmly pulled a second document from her folder. Ms. Delaney was forced to cover a number of legal debts under your name, Ms. Delaney, she said, nodding to Diane. Casino debts from as far back as 2018. 2 lenders have already filed judgments. The estate is obligated to settle those claims. Chloe looked horrified. Wait, the house? The jewelry? It's gone. They must be liquidated to satisfy outstanding debts, Dana said without emotion. You said the savings account had $30,000. Chloe nearly screamed. $7,600, Dana corrected. The rest was drawn to pay off your mother's personal liens. Diane turned on me like a cornered animal. You knew this would happen, she hissed. You let us sit here, thinking we had something. I met her eyes. I didn't let you do anything. You assumed. For a moment, no one moved. Then Chloe's voice broke the silence. So what do I get? Nothing. Langford looked genuinely sympathetic. You'll receive whatever's left after creditors are satisfied. But as of this morning's appraisal, that figure is expected to be minimal. Likely under $1,000. Diane staggered back into her chair. You vindictive little brat, she spat. You played us. I stood. Calm. Even. Just like Rose taught me. Grandma didn't play you. She just finally saw you for what you are. Chloe looked at me then, her eyes wet with something between fury and shame. But she said nothing. Langford slid a small envelope across the table toward Diane and Chloe. There's one last item. A personal letter your grandmother requested I deliver after the proceedings. They hesitated. Then Diane tore it open with shaking hands. She read aloud. To Diane and Chloe, if you're reading this, then I am gone, and so is the illusion that you'd be rewarded for your selfishness. Diane, your addiction cost this family over $200,000 in 10 years. Chloe, you have never worked a day in your life for anything except praise. I watched both of you drain every kindness I offered, assuming there would always be more. There isn't. Melissa earned this. And you earned exactly what you got. Silence. Just the hum of the HVAC overhead. Diane's lips tightened. She folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope like it was diseased. You think you've won, she whispered. I didn't respond. I just picked up my bag and turned toward the door. This wasn't a game, I said. It was a lesson. And you failed. When I stepped out of the law office, the heat of the Texas sun hit my skin like a slap, brutal, cleansing. I stood on the edge of the marble steps. The air thick with the weight of everything that had just happened. I hadn't cried. Not when they mocked me. Not when they dismissed Rose's legacy as paperwork. Not even when Chloe's face crumpled like a child whose candy had been taken. But now. I wanted to. Not out of sorrow. But release. 3 years of Tuesday mornings, coffee-stained spreadsheets, and discussions about quarterly performance reports, finally mattered. She'd told me, they'll never see you coming. That's your power. She was right. Behind me, I heard the doors open. I didn't turn. Melissa, came Chloe's voice, shaky, brittle, not angry for once. Wait. I slowly turned. She stood in the doorway, not the perfect Instagram-ready sister anymore, but just a woman who had thought the world would hand her things and realized too late that someone else had done the work. You could have told us, she said, her voice barely above the traffic noise. You could have given us a chance to prepare. I almost laughed. You mean to contest it? Sell it off before the creditors could touch it? Maybe gamble it all away like Mom did? She flinched. I didn't regret it. Look, I didn't know about the debts, she said quickly. I didn't know Mom had been using my name for her loans. I swear. I believed her. That was the problem. Chloe wasn't malicious. She was complicit. Because it was easier to let Diane lie, spend, manipulate than to ask questions that might lead to uncomfortable truths. I spent 3 years with Grandma, I said. You didn't visit her once without asking for something: money, favors, connections. That's not fair. No, I said, it's not. And that's the whole point. A long pause. Then her voice cracked. I have nothing left. Do you understand that? My apartment was under her name. She co-signed my car. My credits tied to hers. I just lost everything. I swallowed the lump in my throat. This was still my sister. The girl who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. The same one who forgot my birthday 5 years in a row but cried when I got appendicitis. She left you the house, I said. It's going to be seized. There's still time to figure something out. Chloe scoffed bitterly. Yeah, easy for you to say. You inherited a company empire. I inherited a demolished reputation. I met her eyes. That was your choice. She opened her mouth, then closed it. And for once, she didn't have a comeback. The next few days passed like a dream made of concrete. Heavy. Real. The transition process began almost immediately. I had meetings lined up with managers from each of the companies Rose had built. Velvet Brew Company, the craft brewery with limited distribution rights in 6 states. Sunglide Solar, a fast-growing clean tech startup about to land a state contract. Evergrove Residences, a mid-tier residential development firm known for sustainable designs. Brushed Interiors, a staging and design business that catered to celebrity homes in West Austin. And Gather and Serve, a meal prep brand that had quietly exploded on TikTok thanks to a partnership with a wellness influencer. Each meeting revealed something Rose had hidden, not out of secrecy, but humility. She had built not just wealth, but community. Teams that respected her. Leaders who called her Ms. Rose with the same affection they reserved for family. And now they looked at me like I was supposed to fill that role. It was terrifying. But also, exhilarating. On the 3rd day, I got a call. Blocked number. I answered, heart already sinking. It was Diane. Melissa, she said. Her voice was hoarse. Dry. We need to talk. No, we don't. Don't be a child. I held the phone to my ear and walked to the window of my new office, yes, my office, overlooking the east side of the city. The city Rose had invested in when no one else saw its potential. You want money, don't you? A pause. I want to talk. Like family. No. Like a debtor to a creditor, maybe. But not family. That silence again. I know you think this is justice, she whispered, but it's revenge. You waited. You let us walk into that office blind, knowing we were going to be destroyed. I swallowed. It's not revenge, I said. It's consequences. That's something you've avoided your entire life. Then I hung up. She didn't call again. But it wasn't all triumph. That night, I found the last note Rose had written me. It wasn't legal. It wasn't financial. It was personal. It simply read, if you're reading this, then you did everything right. But remember, managing money is easy. Managing people? That's where your heart will be tested. Don't become them in the process. Don't let bitterness grow in the soil of justice. I cried for the first time. Because the truth is, part of me did enjoy watching them fall. Part of me wanted to see Diane tremble and Chloe humbled. I hated that part of myself. I didn't want to become a mirror image of what I had spent so long surviving. So the next morning, I made a choice. I sent Chloe an email. Subject, a conversation, if you want it. Hey. If you're willing to talk, not to guilt me or blame me, but to actually talk. I'll listen. I'm not promising anything. I'm not your savior. But maybe we could try to fix something before it's too far gone. Up to you. M. No response that day. Or the next. But on the 3rd morning, there it was. Subject, a conversation. I don't know if I'm ready to talk. But I'm willing to sit in a room and not yell. I guess that's a start. C. We met at the Cedar and Oak Cafe on the east side of Austin, a place Grandma Rose used to frequent before her knees got too bad. It had clean lines, exposed brick, and the kind of overpriced matcha that Chloe used to mock. Today, she ordered one. She wore oversized sunglasses even though we were indoors, like she needed a barrier between her and the world. Or maybe just me. Thanks for coming, I said, cautious. She nodded but didn't smile. Don't thank me. I almost didn't. We sat in silence for a minute. I sipped my black coffee and watched her stir her untouched drink like it might reveal an escape route if she swirled fast enough. You look tired, I said, regretting it instantly. Chloe gave a humorless laugh. Yeah, well, having your life implode in a conference room will do that to you. I said nothing. Let the air between us settle. Finally, she spoke again. Mom's been in bed for 3 days. She only gets up to check her phone for emails from her lawyer. She still thinks there's a loophole somewhere. That she can fight this. I didn't flinch. There isn't. I know, Chloe said, and for once, I believed she did. But she doesn't. She keeps saying you poisoned Grandma against us. I leaned forward, elbows on the table. Do you believe that? Chloe looked at me, really looked at me. Her voice was quieter this time. No. Not anymore. I think she lost the right to be trusted a long time ago. I just didn't want to see it. A crack of honesty. Small, but real. She used your name for her debts, I said, gently. You could sue for fraud. Chloe scoffed. And do what? Send her to jail? I don't think I can go from Mom's favorite to the reason she has a criminal record. I nodded. I understood. We were both trapped in different cages of her making. Mine had been neglect. Hers, dependency. Chloe leaned back in her chair and took off her sunglasses. Her eyes were red but clear. I want to ask you something, and I want you to be honest. Okay. Did you enjoy it? Watching us fall apart like that? I thought about lying. About softening it. But Rose's voice echoed in my head, managing people is where your heart will be tested. Part of me did, I admitted. Not because I wanted you to suffer. But because for once, I wasn't the one being humiliated. I got to sit at the table and not be invisible. Chloe absorbed that without flinching. I guess that's fair. I hesitated, then asked, why didn't you ever ask Grandma about her finances? You were around enough to see the house never changed, but she always had everything she needed. Didn't it ever occur to you that she might be hiding something? Chloe gave a soft shrug. I didn't want to ask questions I didn't want the answers to. It was easier to believe she was just a sweet old lady with too many throw pillows and a thing for jigsaw puzzles. Easier to believe she was weak. She winced. Yeah, she admitted. That too. We sat in silence again. This time it felt different. Like we weren't two opponents locked in a battle, but survivors of a long, slow catastrophe trying to understand what exactly they'd lived through. Do you think she forgave us? Chloe asked quietly. I thought of Rose's handwriting, firm even in her final weeks. I thought of the notes she'd left me, the ones she'd left them. I thought of the tear I saw slip down her cheek when Diane didn't show up for her 70th birthday. I think she wanted to. But I also think she stopped waiting for you to apologize. Chloe bit her lip. Hard. Then she asked the question I hadn't expected. Would you ever let me work with you? In the businesses? I stared at her. I wanted to say no. I wanted to protect what I'd inherited. What I'd earned. But again, Rose's voice. Her principles. Her insistence on rebuilding where others would burn it all down. If I said yes, I replied carefully, would you be willing to start at the bottom? No executive title. No salary for 6 months. Learn the ropes like I did. Chloe blinked. You're serious? Yes. And what if I screw it up? Then you're out. No second chances. She stared at me, long and hard. Then, unexpectedly, she nodded. I can do that. I didn't believe her, not yet. But I believed she wanted to try. And maybe that was enough. That night, I called Mr. Langford. I want to add Chloe as a probationary trainee under Gather and Serve, I said. Unpaid. No benefits. Just observation. There was a pause. You're sure? He asked. This doesn't interfere with the trust language, but I want you to be aware, it opens the door to future claims if not carefully documented. I'm sure. I'll put everything in writing. Very well, he said. You're a better person than your mother deserves. I didn't answer that. It wasn't about being a better person. It was about building a new legacy. The next day, Chloe showed up at the warehouse in jeans and a t-shirt, no makeup, no entourage. She looked uncomfortable. The operations manager, Bernice, gave her the side eye but said nothing. I watched from the mezzanine as Chloe took inventory with the floor team, her perfectly manicured fingers smudged with ink by noon. She didn't complain. She asked questions. She made mistakes. She apologized. Small steps. Uneven ones. But real. That night, I found another envelope tucked between the files in Rose's desk. It was addressed to me. Just me. If she ever asks to be part of this, give her a chance, but never without a test. Let her prove herself. You're not the judge. You're the steward. The businesses belong to the future, not the past. I smiled. Grandma Rose had thought of everything. Even the possibility of redemption. By week 3, Chloe was showing up to the warehouse before I did. She no longer wore sunglasses indoors. She learned how to stack inventory pallets without breaking fingernails. And when a delivery truck arrived 3 hours late one Wednesday morning, she didn't throw a tantrum, she grabbed a clipboard and reorganized the load schedule. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't dramatic. But it was real. The staff was skeptical at first. Especially Bernice, our operations manager. She'd known Rose for over a decade and didn't trust Easy. That one's got soft hands and a heavy last name, she muttered to me one afternoon in the break room. People like that don't usually stick around. I know, I said. But I want to give her a chance. Bernice raised an eyebrow. Don't let sympathy cloud strategy. I smiled. That sounds like something Rose would have said. She did, Bernice replied, then walked off. And just like that, another ghost of Rose reminded me that while I might have inherited her businesses, I was still learning how to be her. Meanwhile, Diane had entered what I could only describe as her war room phase. I knew because she started emailing me. Not long emails. Just scattered sentences, threats wrapped in desperation. You tricked her. That's coercion. I found a lawyer who says this could be elder fraud. Do you really think this will hold up under scrutiny? You owe us. You owe me. The last one sat in my inbox for 3 days before I opened it. I didn't respond. She wasn't interested in resolution. She wanted restitution. There's a difference. A week later, I got a voicemail from her lawyer. Ms. Delaney, this is Evan Paxton, representing Diane Delaney. I'd like to schedule a mediation meeting before we escalate this to formal litigation. I forwarded the voicemail to Mr. Langford. He called me 20 minutes later. You're going to get more of these, he said. But don't panic. There's no legal ground for her to stand on. I'm not panicking, I said truthfully. I'm sad. Langford paused. Sad? I thought she'd give up after the will reading. I thought losing would make her reflect. But she's just doubling down. Langford sighed. Some people can't survive without control. When they lose it, they try to break anything they can still reach. That hit harder than I expected. Around the same time, Chloe and I were driving back from a site visit at one of the residential developments, Evergrove. She was quiet most of the ride. Not sulking, not avoiding. Just thinking. Finally, she said, I saw her yesterday. I didn't have to ask who. She looked tired, Chloe continued. Worn out. Like she hasn't slept in weeks. She probably hasn't, I said. Chloe hesitated. She asked me to get you to talk to her. Said I should remind you that she's still your mother. I kept my eyes on the road. What did you say? I said being a mother isn't a shield against accountability. I glanced at her. You really said that? She nodded. It felt weird. Like I was betraying her. But also, not. Silence stretched between us. Then she added quietly. Do you ever feel like you inherited something bigger than you can handle? I didn't answer right away. Finally, I said, every morning. That night, I couldn't sleep. I went into Rose's office, now my office, and sat in her old leather chair. I opened the filing cabinet where she kept her handwritten notes and records. Among the files, I found a yellow legal pad with pages filled in her looping cursive. March 6th, Melissa asked about employee equity. She wants to give bonuses to warehouse staff. I didn't prompt that. It's just how she thinks. I'm proud. March 28th, Diane called again. Said she needed money for medical bills. I know that's code for the tables. I said no. She screamed. Hung up. 10 minutes later, she texted me a picture of Chloe in a dress, asking me to help pay for it. Manipulation comes in many shades. April 15th, I told Melissa about Chloe's spending habits. She didn't flinch. Just said, "People learn eventually. She's tougher than I thought." Each entry was another thread in the tapestry I hadn't known Rose had been weaving. She had documented everything, but not just the legal parts. The emotional ones too. Her disappointments. Her hopes. Her reasons. And most haunting of all, her grief. May 19th, I love my daughter. But I don't like the woman she became. And I don't know if that makes me a bad mother or just an honest one. I closed the pad and sat in the dark, my fingers tracing the grain of the desk. I could hear Rose's voice in my memory, clear as day. Leadership isn't about being right. It's about being ready. Ready to listen. Ready to decide. Ready to carry the burden alone. For the first time, I understood just how heavy that burden could be. 2 days later, Chloe walked into the office holding a manila folder. "So, Bernice gave me the intern files. She said I should pick one to train under." I raised an eyebrow. "She trusts you that much?" Chloe smiled faintly. "Not even a little. But she said if I was serious, I'd start learning from the bottom. She said, and I quote, 'If you can survive being bossed around by a 22-year-old with a communications degree, you can survive anything.'" I laughed. She laughed too. And for the first time in a long, long time, we weren't adversaries. We weren't walking on eggshells. We were just two sisters in a strange new world, trying not to repeat the past. That evening, Chloe stopped by my place unannounced. She handed me a small box. Inside was a charm bracelet I hadn't seen in 15 years. The one Grandma gave me when I turned 16. A tiny silver book, a rose, a paintbrush. Symbols of everything I loved. "I found it in Mom's safe," Chloe said. "It was yours. I don't know why she kept it. I thought, maybe you'd want it back." I stared at it, my throat tightening. "Thank you," I whispered. She looked like she wanted to say more, then thought better of it. "Anyway, see you tomorrow." As she walked out, I held the bracelet in my hand and felt something unexpected. Hope. The subpoena arrived on a Thursday. I was in the middle of a quarterly review with the finance team when my assistant, Carmen, slipped into the room and whispered in my ear, "There's someone here, from the district court." I nodded and excused myself, heart already pounding. The man waiting outside was dressed plainly, polite but clinical. He handed me an envelope with a court seal on the front. "Ms. Melissa Delaney?" "Yes. You've been named in a civil suit. The documents are inside." He turned and walked away without fanfare. I stood in the hallway, the buzz of the office behind me suddenly muted. I didn't open the envelope right away. I just stared at it like it might morph into something else. But it didn't. It was real. And it had Diane's name on it. That night, Chloe came by again. I didn't wait to bring it up. I tossed the unopened envelope on the table between us. "You knew, didn't you?" Her eyes widened. "What?" "She's suing me. Claiming coercion, manipulation, elder fraud." "You're telling me she didn't mention that when she asked you to talk to me?" Chloe's face crumpled with guilt. "She mentioned talking to a lawyer, but I didn't think she'd actually file. I told her not to. I begged her." I rubbed my temples. "It's going to make headlines. Even if she loses, which she will, it'll still stain the company. Investors panic when families feud in public." Chloe sat down across from me, looking genuinely distraught. "I'll talk to her. I'll make her drop it." "No, you won't," I said. "You can't." She swallowed. "What do you mean?" "I mean this is the line. The one she's been dancing around for months. The one you keep trying to pretend doesn't exist. But now she crossed it. And you have to choose." Chloe's eyes shimmered with tears. "She's still our mom." "No," I said, gentler now. "She's your mom. She hasn't been mine in a long time." The words hung there, heavy and final. The lawsuit was built on lies. That much was obvious. But lies, when repeated with enough confidence and the right legal language, could still be dangerous. Diane claimed that I'd manipulated a confused elderly woman into signing over control of her assets. That I'd taken advantage of her failing health and isolated her from her rightful heirs. That I'd usurped the family fortune using deceit and coercion. Attached were screenshots, taken out of context, of my emails with Rose, appointment logs, even a grainy photo of Rose in a wheelchair outside the clinic, with a caption reading "unwell and disoriented." I passed the documents to Langford, who skimmed them with a grimace. "She's throwing every spaghetti noodle at the wall," he muttered. "Nothing will stick. But it'll still be expensive." I nodded. "I don't care about the money," I said. "I care about the damage." Langford looked at me, then asked softly, "You sure about that?" I didn't answer. A week later, we held an emergency executive meeting. Not about the lawsuit, about Chloe. Bernice brought it to my attention first. "One of the interns flagged a shipment order," she said. "2 pallets of high-end supplements went out last Friday, but there's no invoice. No PO. No customer file. Could be an error," I said. "It could," she replied. "Or it could be theft." I froze. "You think Chloe?" Bernice raised an eyebrow. "All I'm saying is she signed the release form. I asked her about it this morning, and she panicked. Said she thought it was a free promotional batch. It's not." "I know." I felt a familiar tightness in my chest, the kind that came before betrayal. When I confronted Chloe, she didn't deny it. "I didn't steal anything," she said quickly. "I just approved the shipment without checking. One of the delivery guys said it was a regular client and they were behind on invoices, and I didn't want to delay the delivery." "You didn't ask anyone?" I was trying to be proactive. I folded my arms. "Do you even remember the client's name?" She hesitated. "No." I exhaled sharply. "Chloe, this isn't a lemonade stand. These are regulated products with tracked SKUs and batch numbers. This is supply chain accountability." She looked devastated. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I messed up." "No," I said. "You didn't just mess up. You put the company at legal risk. If this goes wrong, if that shipment ends up with someone who reacts badly, we could be liable. This is serious." She stood there, hands trembling. "Do you want me to quit?" I stared at her for a long time. Finally, I said, "No. But you're starting over. Lower than entry-level. You'll shadow logistics. Clean up spreadsheets. Fetch lunch. Until you understand every moving piece." She nodded, tears falling freely now. "I'm sorry," she said again. I believed her. But I also remembered something Rose once said. "The people who deserve second chances are the ones who don't ask for them. They just keep showing up." As for Diane, she doubled down. She went on a podcast hosted by some third-rate tabloid personality and spun a whole story about how her daughter stole her inheritance and turned her sister against her. She cried on air. Claimed Rose had been suffering from cognitive decline. The audio clip went semi-viral. Our PR team managed the fallout, but investors began calling. Not because they believed Diane, but because perception matters. Family drama isn't a feature, it's a liability. I walked into that week's board meeting with my hair tied back, a black blazer, and the hardest version of myself. "There's no merit to the lawsuit," I said. "But I won't let it define us. I inherited more than wealth. I inherited a legacy, and I'm not handing it over to a woman who gambled away her last chance." The board supported me unanimously. But when I stepped outside, I cried in the hallway. Quiet, messy tears that no one saw. Except Chloe. She didn't say anything. Just stood beside me and handed me a tissue. Maybe that's all we had left. But for now, it was enough. The courtroom was colder than I expected, all polished oak and tight stairs. I sat at the plaintiff's table beside Mr. Langford, my hands folded neatly, though my knuckles had turned white from the pressure. Across from me sat Diane Delaney, my mother, impeccably dressed in a tailored navy pantsuit and a practiced expression of grief. Her lawyer, a smug man with grey hair and expensive cufflinks, leaned over and whispered something in her ear. She nodded, then looked straight ahead, not at me. Not once. Chloe was behind me. She had insisted on coming, even when I told her it might get ugly. "If I don't face this," she'd said, "then I don't deserve the second chance you gave me." So she came. No makeup. Hair tied back. A single notebook in her lap, pen tapping restlessly as she waited. The judge entered, and the trial began. Diane's lawyer was good. He painted a portrait of a daughter who had swooped in during the final years of her mother's life, isolating her, controlling her appointments, hiding her mail. Ms. Delaney, he said, gesturing toward me, was the only family member with direct, unmonitored access to Rose Delaney. She positioned herself as caretaker while deliberately cutting off communication between Rose and her rightful heirs, her daughter and other granddaughter. I didn't flinch. I knew their story. I'd lived its uglier truth. They presented screenshots of text messages, cherry-picked to sound sinister. They showed a security camera still of me entering Rose's house with a banker's box, implying I was taking control. But none of it mattered compared to what came next. Mr. Langford stood and requested that the court allow into evidence the recorded interviews Rose had made, her own idea, months before her passing. She wanted to document everything, not just to be thorough, but to be undeniable. The judge allowed it. Langford pressed play. Rose's voice filled the room. Shaky in tone but steady in conviction. This is Rose Margaret Delaney. I'm of sound mind and recording this of my own free will. I am aware that my daughter Diane has accumulated over $200,000 in gambling debts. I have seen loan paperwork she forged in Chloe's name. I am choosing to leave my business holdings to Melissa because she has shown me respect, care, and intelligence. She is the only one I trust to protect what I've built. My throat tightened. The room was silent. Langford followed up with 3 notarized psych evaluations, dated across 2 years. Each confirmed Rose's mental clarity. There was no room for doubt. None. Diane took the stand on the 3rd day. She cried within 5 minutes. Said she felt betrayed and abandoned by her mother. That she was concerned Rose had been manipulated but never got the chance to say so because I had cut her off. Langford was surgical when he cross-examined. Isn't it true that you asked Ms. Rose Delaney for over $50,000 in cash over a 2-year period? I asked. She didn't always give it. And did you pay any of it back? No. She never asked me to. Isn't it also true that you used your daughter Chloe's name to take out a $17,000 line of credit, which is now in default? That was a mistake. Was it Chloe's mistake? Diane went quiet. And in that silence, everything collapsed. The lawsuit was dismissed. With prejudice. Outside the courthouse, Chloe and I stood on the wide steps, cameras flashing from a distance. A local blog had picked up the story, labeling it the inheritance scandal with a twist. She'll never forgive us, Chloe said. She doesn't have to, I replied. What happens now? She asked. I thought for a moment. We keep going. Months passed. Chloe stayed with the company. She started leading the community outreach program at Gather and Serve, coordinating donations, launching a low-income meal kit initiative, and eventually giving a TEDx talk titled Failing Forward, What My Grandmother's Silence Taught Me. People listened. Because her shame wasn't polished, it was real. She never asked for a title. Never asked for money. Just kept showing up. She had stopped trying to be forgiven. And maybe that's why, slowly, she was. Diane moved to Arizona. The creditors had taken everything but one car and a tiny inheritance trust she had left from her uncle. She sent me a letter once, a single paragraph handwritten in shaky script. You think you've won. Maybe you have. But I'll never believe I was the villain. Just a mother who got left behind. I never replied. Because sometimes, silence isn't revenge. It's mercy. Years later, I was invited to speak at a women's entrepreneurship summit. They asked me how I came into my role. I stood at the podium, lights hot on my face, and told them the truth. I inherited 5 companies. But I didn't earn them in the way people think. I earned them through presence. Through patience. Through listening when no one else would. I watched the people I loved fall apart, not because they were evil, but because they believed the world owed them something. My grandmother didn't give me her businesses because I was the best candidate on paper. She gave them to me because I didn't expect them. Because I was willing to build instead of take. Leadership is not about getting what you want. It's about holding what others have built without breaking it. They gave a standing ovation. But I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt steady. Later that night, I visited Rose's grave. No flowers. Just my bracelet, the one Chloe had returned to me, gently resting on the stone. You were right, I said. About all of it. I sat beside her and whispered the rest of the story, the truth about Chloe, the lawsuit, the healing. About how the companies had grown. How we were hiring. Expanding. Giving back. We didn't just keep it alive, Grandma, I said. We made it mean something. A breeze moved through the trees. I imagined her smile. Her quiet nod. She'd never asked to be remembered. Only respected. Epilogue. 3 years later. Chloe became COO of Gather and Serve. Diane never contacted us again.